Hey, everybody, welcome back. We have another edition of Stakeholder Whispering live once again. I'm Bill Shander, and here to talk about the concepts known as stakeholder whispering, which I wrote a book about, but we're not here to talk about me or my stupid book. Who cares? We're actually here to talk about, or with, and about Mark Johson, who is joining us all the way from Sydney, Australia. And Mark, if you could, why don't you say hi to everybody and give us a quick introduction? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mark Johson. I've been working in the data field for quite a number of years. Probably in the last 6, 7 years, I've rejoined it. My focus has been in the last 7 years looking at technology spend within organisations within a particular framework, which is called technology business management. Recently, I have actually joined a new organisation as well, and that's sort of more Power BI reporting across an organisation. That's across not just technology spend, but all business insights. I guess the focus for today is probably looking at sort of my prior role in the technology business space and some of the insights that I uncovered from there.
Yeah,
So I guess, yeah.
I was going to say, yeah,
Sorry,
I was hoping you would share an anecdote or two of, successes or failures of when people have asked you to do things and it worked out or it didn't work out, and what the key lessons are in terms of that back and forth with your stakeholders to figure out what they really needed from you.
Yeah, I don't know if this story is a success or a failure. Bill and I were just talking about that before. It's an interesting story. So, look, I'm certainly happy with the work that I achieved. It was a hard piece of work. So, the organisation that I worked with previously used to do benchmarking spend, and that was to a Gartner framework for their technology. Obviously, a lot of organisations spend a lot of money on technology, and they wanted to understand whether their spend was in the right areas. Whether they were spending too much, a little, and on security, the infrastructure, whether the investment was in the right areas as well. Traditionally, a consultant company would come in and provide this analysis for the organisation. They would spend quite a number of months going out to the business to collect all the financial data, and then they would sort of munge it all up into sort of spreadsheets and then produce a PowerPoint pack. I'd been working for the organisation for a number of years, and I'd also been managing or modelling their technology spend. So I was actually quite close to this data already. I came through with a new approach. We were going to use a system to automate a lot of the modelling for us. There was still a lot of work in collecting the data, and we spent quite a number of months going through it, speaking to the business units. The conversations, though, we had changed. Rather than asking them for the information, what we were doing is we were providing them with, we know this about your spend. Can you please tell us what you're doing next year? So it was more of we were leading the conversation rather than them providing us with the information. And we felt that was a better approach because it meant that we were sort of capturing things that they probably hadn't considered. And then it was just them sort of just filling in the gaps for us and just checking that, yes, they're comfortable with what we're going to be doing here and the numbers that we're going to be modeling are correct. Once we collected all those numbers, I spent quite a bit of time developing a model, which was on the spend and also on the people. And it looked basically from how the spend was being delivered. So is it on people? Is it on projects? Is it on suppliers? And then what function of IT was it for? And then what areas of the business was consuming the actual IT itself. Once the raw data was produced, we actually had it at a far more granular level than had been produced previously. And so we loaded this all into Power BI and started to produce some reports. When I started to delve into those reports, some shocking trends were apparent to me very, very early on. They actually had me quite worried, to be honest, and I had fears for the future of the organisation, in particular certain areas of the business itself. Unfortunately for me, what did happen though was I had annual leave when meetings were called with senior leadership to discuss the data that I produce. So I wasn't actually there to fill in the gaps and provide my own analysis and views on what I was seeing. Certain views were taken on the data. Certain decisions were made, which were probably not maybe the right decision at the time. It certainly made a couple of people unhappy. As a result of that, well, I can't say as a result of that because I think that the organisation potentially was heading this way. But what did happen was large areas of this business, and particularly the people that were looking at this data, were actually all made redundant. And I was one of those people that were affected as well. So
Wow.
is it a success? Well, I think the data was probably, it didn't tell a lie. It certainly was the truth. That's what was happening in the business. Obviously, the business probably recognized that maybe some changes need to be made, and they took action. Did the people who were looking at the data understand the true impact and understand what was happening that they could influence? I don't know. And maybe that's maybe where the failure is. Could I have done more? I'm not certain as well.
What's
Certainly a
really
good
interesting,
learning.
it does sound like it's both a success and a failure of stakeholder whispering. The successful stakeholder whispering at the beginning, understanding what was needed from this data, how you needed to package up the data, asking the questions in a different way, collecting in a different way, doing a Power BI report instead of a PowerPoint document. All those things sound like you really delivered something of value to the organization. So that's a success. And then to your point, this meeting happened. You weren't even there to deal with it. And so people also misunderstood some things or couldn't have seen from a perspective where they could have said, well, this problem is solvable, this problem is solvable in this way. And so therefore the decisions that were made because of that meeting maybe was a failure of stakeholder whispering in your case, just because you literally weren't there to actually be able to do it yourself. So it's actually lessons in there. It seems like on both sides. Is that fair?
It's very fair. And the other question I would ask myself is, even if I was there, would they have listened to what I had said? Because perhaps I wasn't saying, I wasn't talking the narrative they wanted to hear. It wasn't confirming the story that they've been telling all along. And they were obviously looking for data that was going to confirm their story. I didn't provide that data.
Yeah.
So, and that's obviously one of the things as well. A lot of people, a lot of leaders want to go out and find evidence that supports their narrative. And when they don't find that, do they discount it? Do they ignore it? That's obviously
Yeah.
the joy of the business, isn't it? You can't always convince other people, actually, you're wrong. And we need to perhaps reconsider our approach here.
Yeah. So let me ask you, given that highly nuanced situation and that reality that you just said, that sometimes they just want the data to confirm what they're looking for and they're not going to hear it, no matter what you say, if it's not, supporting their ideas. What is the key lesson that you learned from this? Is there a lesson you could take away from that so that the next time you're in a situation like that, it works out better? Or is the lesson that it went exactly how it needed to go?
That's a good question. I guess there's a couple of lessons for me. Data is data, and I think the lesson for me was to try and provide the data in a way that you're not sort of trying to hide anything with it. And I know that we can do things with data to sort of hide certain facts. Is that the right thing to do with it? Did I do the right thing? I actually stand by my actions, and I believe ethically I did the right thing. The consequence to me, obviously, was I was made redundant. That's okay. That's life, But I hear that the average person gets made redundant a number of times in their lives. So it happened to be my time, back in December. I'm okay with that. I guess, the impact to other people, is that does that fall on my shoulders? No, it doesn't. That's above me as such. So
Yeah,
it's a hard question to answer, Bill, in some ways, because you're right.
it
What did I
is.
learn? I think probably what I did learn is perhaps I should have really pushed back to make sure that I was part of the meeting and I was part of that conversation and I was part of that consultation.
Yeah.
It got sort of taken out of my hands. So maybe I should have just been a little bit sort of held on to that little, actually, no, you need to let me be there. I need to be part of this conversation, even if you don't like what
Yeah.
I have to say.
It's funny, one of the, in my book, I share a bunch of personal anecdotes and stories from my own career. And one of the biggest failures of stakeholder whispering in my own personal career was because of essentially, I was not able to really directly speak with my client on a big project. And it was a very prominent project and a very prominent client. And I wasn't able to whisper him directly, except for one or a couple times during the process. And I allowed
Mm.
that to happen. I allowed it, like in your case, I wasn't there. I wasn't able to have the conversation with him. And that's one of my key lessons from that experience is that you can't whisper by proxy. You can't explain to somebody else, okay,
Mm.
now you go do the meeting and you'll do as good a job as I will. If you're the one who's, closest to the data and you know why you did what you did, et cetera. Um, Now I know that now you're in this new role And we were talking about that a little bit before we got on here, and you explained how, you're in this onboarding process and trying to, immerse yourself in the culture and the reality of that organization, and that you're noticing a few things about how IT speaks to their stakeholders there. And so maybe you can share an anecdote from your experience there as well.
Yeah, certainly. We recently had an IT all hands, and one of the members of the IT team sort of mentioned that we should be, I guess, when we're sort of delivering IT projects, we need to be more engaged with our business users. We need to make sure that we're understanding what it is that they're asking. We need to ask the question why. Now, I certainly didn't disagree with what he was saying. However, when I was listening to the conversation, it felt very technical. It was a lot of technical people talking about the problem. And I guess for me, my challenge was because I have been on both the technical and the business side of the fence. If I was listening to somebody talk to me and I was on the business side of the fence, the way they were speaking in that room, I'd be sitting there scratching my head going, I don't know what you're saying right now. I don't understand why you're giving me this problem. Like, the language was very technical. Everything about it was very technical. And I felt that, yeah, while their intentions are good, they still need to sort of sit down and work out how do we engage with business users as a technical person. I
Yeah.
then went on to one of our systems, which is where you can raise a request for an IT project. And I read there's probably around about 10 things that need to be filled in as part of this project. And to me, it was obviously written by a project manager. The language, everything about it was a project manager. Now, as a business user, I'd be struggling to understand some of these questions, and I probably wouldn't have the answer to a lot of the questions as well. The language, everything about it was project management. Now, yes, it's an IT project. I understand that, but who's filling in this form? Who is the user of this form? It's a business user. So I just felt that the language and everything about it needed to probably just be a little bit more business bent rather than the sort of technical bent.
Yeah.
And that's why I was sort of really interested in what we're doing here, this stakeholder whispering, and how do we effectively engage with our business users in a language that they're comfortable talking in. And then when we've got a technical concept that we need to explain, we're explaining in a way that they can actually understand. We're not using big words that we learned at university.
Yeah. And jargon. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like, for you said you have experience on the business side. So you were on the other side of the table. And so of course you understand what those people are thinking and how they approach things. A lot of
Mm,
IT workers, a lot of technical people have only ever been on their side of that desk. And so they do speak in jargon, they understand the technology, so they speak about the technology, et cetera. So what's your best piece of advice to help someone that doesn't have that natural empathy and or has not had that experience themselves? What's like one thing, if you can think of anything, that will help that technical person do a better job engaging with that business user? Is there any the secret that you can share?
I don't know if this is the best piece of advice. So my history and my nature was I jumped out of out of the IT sphere, and I was working in travel as a travel agent for 14 years. Now that was just part of my history and where my career went. So working in a non-technical job, so where I had to engage with clients, I had to engage with the public. I was doing sales training. I was doing a lot of other soft skills training. So I think if an IT person really wants to effectively engage the business, they need to step away from their day-to-day IT work and actually go and sit in with the business and do the business thing and actually understand what it is, the challenges that business people face. Because you're engaging with people, you're talking to other people quite a lot of the time, and then you come to your computer and it's not doing what you want, or you got this process where I got to do X, Y, and Z, and it's taking me 3 hours to do this. I just want to press a button and my computer does it for me. Can I explain it to you, or can't you just work that out for me? That's kind of
Yeah.
that's your job. So I think being able to sort of step onto the other side and say the business person does what they do for a reason. We all do what we do for a reason. Now, IT people will look at a business person and go, that doesn't make any logical sense. Well, business isn't all logic, is it? It's people.
Right.
So we need to sort of apply less logic and more sort of people thinking. So how do you do that? I guess, look, I would say through your education and through your career, go and do a non-technical job. Go and work in a restaurant and deal with people. That's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, I have a chapter about empathy in the book, and empathy, it turns out, is learnable. And one of the ways to learn it is by literally experiencing it. Essentially, step into someone's shoes, and you will develop empathy as part of that process. And so, yeah, if an IT person just gets out of their IT mode for a moment and speaks to other humans about human normal things, then they sort of step back from the jargon, step back from the technology, and can sort of engage. Because we all do it in our regular lives. When an IT person goes and gets a pizza, they speak like a normal human and they just order pizza. And
Exactly right.
I don't know why it has to get all technical when we're talking about databases and other things. We can speak in a normal way about that as well.
Yeah, I guess, by nature, IT people are probably going to be more friends with other IT people and technical people. So maybe their conversations outside of work are more technical in nature. I'm on, a WhatsApp chat with some university friends, and I look at some of the conversation. They're talking about servers and gigabytes and lots of stuff, and I usually just scroll
Yeah,
past that.
yeah,
It's interesting sometimes, but sometimes it's not, because I've worked in the non-technical side as well. But
yeah,
I would, yes, seriously recommend that these people need to, you need to consider either, if you can do a job that's, people engagement, or do some sort of training that's not technical, that is about people, some psychology, or, some other sort of arts, for want of a better term as such, that steps away from logic.
yeah,
Because business, as I said before, is not always all logic. It's about delivering something that people want, and you can't put logic around what people want sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So it's
great.
want
That, that's
my
a
life to be easier. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good place to end it. Can't put logic around what people want sometimes. I think that's very fair. Mark, I want to
Yeah.
thank you very much for talking to me. I really appreciate your sharing your experience and insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and thanks for the book as well. I'm enjoying it so far, and I love the training. So
Excellent.
keep it up. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
everybody else, I'll see you again next week for another episode of Stakeholder Whispering Live. Take care.